Hey there. Today we're diving into a mind-blowing idea that might just change the way you see everything. You won't believe who's actually controlling the simulation right now. No BS. No fluff. No sugarcoating. Just raw, unfiltered truth about how the world around you might be nothing more than a carefully crafted program, and who or what is pulling the strings behind it all. I'm not here to give you a history lesson or some fancy academic lecture. Instead, imagine waking up one day and realizing that every decision, every routine, every random moment is part of a massive design. Sounds crazy, right? Well, stick with me because we're going to break it all down, share some crazy stories, dig into theories that blend ancient wisdom with modern tech, and even look at the science that might be behind this whole simulation. Whether you're a skeptic or a true believer, by the end of this video, you might just start questioning the very fabric of your reality. So, let's jump in and start peeling back the layers of this cosmic onion. Let's start at the beginning. When we talk about this simulation, we're not talking about your favorite video game or a VR experiment. We're talking about the possibility that our entire universe, everything we see, feel, and experience, is part of a giant program. Think of it as the ultimate computer game, where every tree, every conversation, and every decision is pre-written in lines of code. Now, I know that sounds like science fiction, but there's a lot of buzz about this theory. Some of the world's smartest people have pondered whether the universe is a simulation, and they've found some wild clues along the way. Ancient philosophies, like those found in Gnostic texts and the Nag Hammadi manuscripts, have long suggested that our reality might be controlled by hidden forces. Fast forward to today, and modern scientists are exploring quantum mechanics and digital physics to see if the universe behaves like a giant computer program. It might be that what we think of as random chance is actually part of a grand design, set in motion by a higher intelligence, or even an elite group of digital architects. Some researchers have pointed out strange patterns in nature and in our daily lives. Patterns that suggest everything from the movement of particles to the decisions we make might be calculated, predictable, and even manipulated. Whether it's the idea that our social media feeds are pre-programmed or that our brains are wired to follow routines that keep us in line, the suggestion is the same. Our world might not be as free or as spontaneous as we'd like to believe. All right, let's pull back the curtain and dive into the heart of the matter. Who is actually running this simulation we call reality? It might sound like something straight out of a sci-fi thriller, but stick with me. What we're about to explore is a blend of historical accounts, modern theories, and some pretty wild speculations that will make you question everything you thought you knew. When we talk about the controllers of the simulation, we're not just talking about a single entity or even a single group. It's more like a sprawling network of power players that have evolved over centuries, adapting their methods to suit the times. In ancient times, power was consolidated in the hands of kings, priests, and emperors who claimed divine right or mystical knowledge. Fast forward to today, and while the names and faces may have changed, the underlying mechanisms of control remain eerily similar. Let's start with the traditional power structures that have dominated society for centuries. Governments, with all their bureaucracies and legislatures, have long been the face of authority. They set the rules of the game, laws, regulations, and policies that dictate nearly every aspect of our lives. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll find that these governmental structures often serve as the public face of control, while more shadowy networks pull the strings behind the scenes. Think about it. While you may vote for a politician, the real decisions often come from a network of advisors, lobbyists, and behind-the-scenes operatives whose influence is rarely visible to the average person. Now, consider the world of big business, particularly the tech giants that dominate our digital lives. Companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon have become modern-day gatekeepers of information. They decide what content we see, what news reaches us, and even what products get pushed into our shopping carts. Their algorithms are so finely tuned that they predict our behavior before we even make a conscious decision. In many ways, these companies have taken the role of ancient deities, not by demanding worship, but by shaping our perceptions and behaviors in ways we can't even fathom. They're not just selling us products, they're selling us a carefully curated version of reality. And as we spend more time online, we're giving them even more data to refine their control. But the picture doesn't stop with governments and corporations. There's a whole other layer of control that operates in the shadows, a network of secret societies and hidden elites that many claim have orchestrated historical events from behind the scenes. These aren't your everyday organizations. These are groups that, according to conspiracy theorists and alternative researchers alike, have existed for centuries. They're rumored to have influenced everything from the founding of nations to the outcomes of wars. While concrete evidence might be hard to come by, and much of it remains classified or disputed, the very idea that such groups could exist forces us to question the nature of power and control. Could there be a secret cabal whose sole purpose is to keep us locked in a predetermined script? Modern technology has given these secretive networks a whole new playground. With the rise of the internet and digital communication, the same power brokers of old have found new ways to influence society. Digital currencies, blockchain technology, and decentralized networks have all added a layer of complexity to the way power is distributed. Some theorists argue that while the traditional institutions are trying to maintain control, a new breed of digital rebels is emerging. People who use technology to bypass the old systems and create their own decentralized alternatives. These new players aren't necessarily trying to overthrow the system outright. Instead, they're working to disrupt it, to find the cracks in the code that run our reality. They're the hackers, the crypto enthusiasts, and the independent journalists who believe that transparency and decentralization are the keys to true freedom. So, who really sits at the top of this labyrinth of power? One way to think about it is to imagine control as a layered cake. On the very top, you have the visible institutions, governments, corporations, media conglomerates, whose actions and policies affect our daily lives. Beneath that layer lies the intricate network of lobbyists, advisors, and influencers who shape the decisions of these institutions. And below that, hidden even from those in power, are the mysterious organizations and individuals who are rumored to have access to forbidden knowledge and technologies. They're the ones who might be orchestrating events on a global scale, setting the parameters within which the rest of us are allowed to operate. Let's talk a bit about some of the key players often mentioned in these discussions. First up are the tech giants. It's no secret that companies like Google and Facebook have built empires on data. They harvest our personal information, track our online behavior, and use sophisticated algorithms to predict and influence our decisions. What's even more startling is the sheer scale at which they operate. With billions of users worldwide, these companies wield unprecedented power, not just over commerce, but over culture, politics, and even our perceptions of reality. There are plenty of reports and studies showing just how much influence these platforms have on everything from election outcomes to public opinion. Some experts warn that if left unchecked, the power of these digital behemoths could soon eclipse that of traditional governments. Then there's the financial sector. Banks and investment firms are the unseen engines of the global economy. They manage the flow of money, dictate interest rates, and influence fiscal policy on a scale that affects every single person on the planet. The financial system, with its complex web of loans, debts, and derivatives, can be seen as another layer of the simulation, a framework designed to keep us all chasing an ever-elusive dream of wealth and stability. In this view, money isn't just a tool for transactions. It's a mechanism of control. It dictates our choices, limits our freedoms, and creates a hierarchy that benefits those at the top while keeping the masses in a constant state of dependency. Some critics argue that the modern financial system is a finely tuned machine designed not to serve humanity, but to extract value from us in a way that keeps us locked into a predetermined cycle of consumption and debt. Another fascinating aspect to consider is the role of media. Traditional media outlets, television, newspapers, radio, have long been instruments of control, shaping public opinion and influencing behavior. But in today's digital age, media has evolved into something even more insidious. Social media platforms, blogs, and online news sites allow for a constant stream of information that is curated by algorithms designed to capture your attention. This means that the news you see is not a neutral reflection of reality, but a filtered, sometimes manipulated version that serves the interests of those in power. It's a subtle form of control, one that doesn't rely on overt censorship or propaganda, but on the quiet, almost invisible nudges that steer your thoughts in a particular direction. Let's not overlook the impact of artificial intelligence. AI isn't just the future, it's already here, and it's playing a significant role in how our world is shaped. From personalized recommendations on streaming services to advanced surveillance systems used by governments, AI is becoming an integral part of our daily lives. And as AI technology continues to evolve, it could become an even more powerful tool for those seeking to control the simulation. Imagine a world where every decision you make is not only predicted by an algorithm, but subtly influenced by it. It's a scenario that sounds straight out of a dystopian novel, but many experts believe it's not far off. The integration of AI into our lives raises important questions about free will and autonomy. Are we truly in control of our own decisions, or are they being guided by unseen forces operating through lines of code? Of course, all of these elements, governments, corporations, financial institutions, media, and AI, don't operate in isolation. They're interconnected in a vast network of influence that spans the globe. This network is like a hidden ecosystem, where each player contributes to the overall system of control. What's especially intriguing is how seamlessly these elements blend together, creating an environment where power is both centralized and decentralized at the same time. On one hand, you have the centralized power of a few major institutions that shape global events. On the other hand, you have the decentralized, almost grassroots movements that are emerging online, challenging the status quo and seeking to reclaim control of their own lives. This tension between centralization and decentralization is one of the most fascinating aspects of the modern simulation. It suggests that while the old ways of control are still very much in place, there's also a growing movement of resistance that could eventually upend the entire system. And then there's the notion of the deep state, or the hidden government, terms that have become increasingly popular in recent years. The idea here is that behind the elected officials and public institutions lies a network of bureaucrats, intelligence agents, and shadow operatives who truly run the show. They're the ones who have access to classified information and who make decisions that have far-reaching consequences, often without any public oversight. While much of this remains speculative and controversial, there are enough documented instances of secretive behavior and undisclosed agendas to keep the debate alive. Whether you subscribe to the deep state theory or not, it's hard to deny that there's a lot more happening behind closed doors than meets the eye. Now, if you're still with me, you might be wondering, how do all these disparate elements connect? How do governments, corporations, media, financial institutions, AI, and secret societies form a coherent system of control? The answer might lie in the concept of information flow. In today's world, information is power. The ability to control what information gets disseminated, and to whom, translates directly into the ability to shape behavior and influence decisions. That's why controlling the narrative has become a top priority for those in power. By managing the flow of information, they can create a reality that suits their interests, one where dissent is minimized and compliance is maximized. In this light, the controllers of the simulation aren't just those with money or political power. They're also the architects of the information networks that define our culture. It's worth taking a moment to consider how this all affects you on a personal level. Every time you log onto social media, watch a news report, or even check your bank balance, you're interacting with elements of this grand simulation. The controllers, whether they're corporate executives, government officials, or secretive elites, aren't just abstract figures. Their influence permeates every aspect of your daily life. And the scary part is that much of it happens without your conscious awareness. You might think you're making free choices, but what if those choices are being subtly guided by a system that's been in place long before you were even born? There's a certain irony in all of this. The very systems that are designed to keep you comfortable and secure, your government, your job, your social media, might also be the ones that are holding you back. They provide a sense of order and predictability, which can be reassuring in an uncertain world. But at the same time, that order is a form of control, a way to keep you from venturing too far out of the established script. When you step outside your routine, when you question why things are the way they are, you start to see the cracks in the facade. And those cracks? They're where the truth begins to seep through. I know all this can sound overwhelming, even a little paranoid. But here's the thing. Questioning the status quo is the first step to reclaiming your own power. The idea that a hidden network of controllers might be running the simulation isn't necessarily about fear. It's about awareness. The more you understand how the system works, the better equipped you'll be to make choices that are truly your own. It's about breaking free from the patterns that have been laid out for you and discovering a reality that's not dictated by someone else's agenda. To wrap this up, let's bring everything together. The controllers of the simulation aren't a monolithic group. They're a complex web of power that spans across governments, corporations, secret societies, and even cutting-edge technologies like AI. They work in concert to shape every aspect of our lives, from the information we consume to the financial systems that dictate our economic destiny. But here's the kicker. Just because they have this power doesn't mean you have to be a passive participant. By understanding the mechanisms of control and recognizing the subtle cues in your daily life, you can start to push back against the system. You can choose to question, to disrupt, and ultimately to rewrite your own code. In the end, unmasking the controllers is about more than just exposing who's behind the curtain. It's about empowering yourself to see the world in a new light. It's about realizing that while the system might be vast and complex, it's not unbreakable. Every time you make a conscious choice, every time you refuse to go along with the scripted routine, you're chipping away at the very foundation of the simulation. And that, my friend, is where true freedom begins. So, take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed. Consider the various layers of control, from the visible institutions to the hidden networks operating in the shadows. Realize that while these forces might seem omnipresent and invincible, they're not infallible. Their power comes from our collective acceptance of the status quo, and the moment we start to question, we begin to unlock the door to something far greater, a reality where you're in control. Remember, knowledge is the first step toward liberation. The more you learn about the mechanisms behind the simulation, the more you'll see that every aspect of your life has been shaped by forces that you can, in fact, influence. And the journey to unmasking these controllers isn't about cynicism or despair. It's about awakening to the fact that you have the power to change the game. So, as you move forward, keep your eyes open. Notice the patterns, the coincidences, the moments that feel too orchestrated to be mere chance. Share your insights with others, spark conversations, and don't be afraid to challenge what you've been told. Because in the end, every question you ask, every assumption you challenge, is a step toward reclaiming your freedom in this vast, mysterious simulation. Now that you have a clearer picture of who might be controlling the simulation, It's time to take that knowledge and use it as a springboard for change. The more people who awaken to these ideas, the more cracks will appear in the system. Cracks that could one day lead to a reality where true autonomy isn't just a dream, but a living, breathing reality. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and never stop asking questions. Because the moment you stop questioning is the moment you let someone else write your code. And that, ultimately, is the most dangerous thing of all. There you have it. An in-depth look at who might really be in charge of the simulation we call life. Whether you believe it all or see it as a metaphor for modern control systems, the discussion is an invitation to look closer, think deeper, and take action. The controllers are out there, hidden in plain sight, but so are the opportunities for change. The power to disrupt the system lies in your hands. Now, if you're ready to take on the challenge and start rewriting your own code, remember, you're not alone in this journey. Keep questioning, keep pushing back, and most importantly, keep your mind open to the endless possibilities that lie beyond the surface of everyday life. The simulation might be running in the background, but you hold the power to change its course, and that's a truth worth fighting for. Imagine for a moment that every single detail of your life, every habit, every routine, every random encounter is being dictated by an unseen code. Not a code written by a computer programmer, but one that underpins the very fabric of our existence. It might sound like a plot from a science fiction movie, but what if this isn't just imagination? What if our lives are actually being run on a set of rules engineered by forces we barely understand? At its core, the idea is simple. Our world might operate like a massive, highly efficient simulation. In this view, what we call reality is not a chaotic accident, but a deliberate design, with each of us following a predetermined script. This isn't just about routine. It's about an intricate architecture of control that dictates everything from the way our social media feeds are curated to how particles behave at the quantum level. Let's break it down. Think about your day. You wake up to a blaring alarm, check your phone, and then follow a series of actions that you hardly question. Brushing your teeth, having breakfast, commuting to work, and then repeating the same cycle day after day. It almost seems like a loop. Now, what if this loop is more than just habit? What if it's part of a larger design, a system of programmed behavior? Research has shown that a significant portion of our decisions, some studies even claim as much as 89%, follow predictable patterns. Our brains are wired for routine because it conserves energy and creates a sense of stability. But here's the kicker. When our actions become predictable, it becomes much easier for an external system to anticipate them. This predictability is like an open invitation to an algorithm, one that can mold our behavior without us even noticing. Now, let's dive into how this control might actually be implemented. One of the primary tools at play is the constant barrage of digital stimuli that we encounter every day. Social media platforms, search engines, and even the news you read aren't just random bits of information. They're carefully curated streams of content, powered by complex algorithms designed to predict what will keep you engaged. Every click, every like, every share is data, and that data feeds back into the system to make the next recommendation even more tailored to your interests. These algorithms work in a way that mirrors the fundamental principles of the simulation theory. They analyze vast amounts of data, find patterns, and then use those patterns to render content that feels personalized. It's like the simulation only generates the parts of reality that are needed at the moment you're paying attention. This approach is strikingly similar to how video games operate. A game only renders the environment around the player in high detail, while leaving other areas blurred or unrendered until needed. In our case, the rendering happens on a societal scale, where our perceptions are constantly being updated by streams of curated information designed to keep us on a specific path. But it's not just about what we see online. Think about advertising for a minute. Every commercial you watch, Every sponsored post you scroll past is carefully crafted based on your online behavior. The advertisers aren't just selling products, they're selling an experience, a lifestyle, a way of thinking that fits neatly into a predetermined narrative. They use psychological triggers and persuasive techniques honed over decades, sometimes centuries, of marketing research. This is behavioral engineering at its finest. By tapping into our subconscious desires and fears, these messages nudge us into making choices that reinforce the system's overall design. Now let's step back and consider a deeper layer of the simulation, the quantum realm. Modern physics has uncovered some pretty weird phenomena that suggest reality might not be as solid as it seems. One of the most famous examples is the double slit experiment, where particles behave like waves until they're observed, at which point they collapse into a specific position. This has led some scientists to speculate that the act of observation itself is what renders reality, much like a computer only processing the data you're actively looking at. In other words, our perception might be what brings the simulation into focus. Until we observe something, it exists in a state of possibility, like code waiting to be executed. When we finally check in on it, the simulation fills in the details, creating the illusion of a solid, continuous reality. This phenomenon isn't just a quirk of science. It might be a fundamental feature of how the simulation runs. It suggests that at the smallest scales, reality is not fixed but fluid, able to change based on the presence of an observer. In practical terms, this means that every moment of conscious attention could be seen as a kind of refresh button on the simulation, determining which version of reality is displayed. It's a wild concept, but it points to a system that is both dynamic and highly efficient, one that uses our own consciousness as a key component of its operation. Another interesting aspect of this control is the way in which our environment and even our social interactions are structured. Consider urban planning and the way cities are built. Many argue that the design of modern cities, with their grid-like streets, predictable public transportation routes, and standardized residential zones, is not just about efficiency, but also about control. When your environment is highly structured, your options are limited, and your behavior becomes more predictable. It's much like setting the parameters for a computer simulation, where every object is placed in a specific location to maintain order. This isn't to say that there's a single mastermind designing every street corner, but rather that the cumulative effect of many design decisions creates an environment that reinforces routine and discourages deviation. At a broader level, societal structures like education, work, and even family dynamics play into this idea of programmed behavior. From a young age, we are taught to follow a certain path. Go to school, get a job, start a family, and so on. This script is so deeply ingrained that questioning it feels almost unthinkable. And yet, by following this predetermined script, we're effectively handing over our autonomy to a system that has been carefully calibrated over generations. Our educational institutions, for example, emphasize conformity and standardized testing, tools that ensure a steady, predictable output of individuals who are well suited to the existing order. While there are always those who break free, the majority of us are content to follow the path laid out for us, which in turn reinforces the system's stability. So, how does this all tie back to the simulation theory? In a simulated environment, everything is designed to function within a set of parameters, and deviation is either minimized or flagged for correction. Think about video games again. When a player strays from the intended path, the game might introduce obstacles or glitches to steer them back on track. In our world, these glitches might manifest as unexpected coincidences, setbacks, or even moments of intense déjà vu that hint at something deeper. Some people have reported experiencing moments where the normal rules of reality seem to bend or break. A street sign appearing in an unexpected place, a conversation repeating itself, or events unfolding with eerie predictability. These anomalies could be seen as the system's way of recalibrating, ensuring that everything continues to run smoothly, even if it means sacrificing a bit of spontaneity along the way. Let's also talk about technology and data. The modern world is awash in data, billions of bytes generated every second by our interactions with devices, sensors, and cameras. This data isn't just collected for the sake of it. It's processed, analyzed, and used to refine the algorithms that govern our online experiences. But it also serves a second purpose. It creates a massive feedback loop that informs the simulation's control system. Every piece of data, every click, every swipe, every facial expression captured on a smartphone contributes to a detailed map of human behavior. This map is then used to predict our actions, customize our experiences, and, ultimately, shape our behavior in real time. In a way, our lives are being constantly monitored and optimized, like a computer program running on a loop, adjusting its output based on the input it receives. The idea of a simulation running on data and algorithms is both fascinating and unsettling. It suggests that the control over our lives isn't exerted solely through overt means like laws or physical coercion, but through subtle, almost invisible mechanisms that shape our perceptions and decisions. It's like being in a giant maze where every turn is pre-calculated, every corridor designed to lead you back to the same central hub. And while that might sound like a dystopian nightmare, it also opens up the possibility of finding the hidden glitches in the system, those small moments where the pattern breaks, offering a glimpse of something more. Consider, too, the role of automation and artificial intelligence. AI isn't just transforming industries, it's infiltrating every aspect of our lives. From voice assistants to self-driving cars, AI systems are becoming increasingly sophisticated, capable of learning and adapting in ways that mimic human behavior. But as AI grows more advanced, it could also be used as a tool to enforce the simulation's rules even more efficiently. Imagine a future where AI doesn't just predict your behavior, but actively guides it, where algorithms decide which jobs you're qualified for, which products you should buy, and even which ideas you should consider. It's a scenario that might sound like the stuff of dystopian fiction, but many experts warn that we're already seeing the early stages of this kind of control. AI systems are designed to optimize performance, and in doing so, they often prioritize predictability and efficiency over spontaneity and individuality. The result is a world where every action is anticipated and, in many cases, subtly directed by algorithms that operate behind the scenes. And then there's the idea of feedback loops, cycles where our behavior influences the system, which in turn reinforces our behavior. This is especially evident in the realm of social media. When you post something online and it gets a lot of likes or shares, that positive reinforcement encourages you to post similar content in the future. Meanwhile, the algorithm takes note of what worked and serves you more of it, creating a loop that gradually narrows your exposure to new ideas or experiences. This kind of self-reinforcing cycle isn't limited to online interactions. It can be seen in everything from political discourse to consumer habits, where the choices you make end up reinforcing the very system that shapes them. It's as if the simulation is designed to keep you locked in a feedback loop that makes true change or deviation from the norm increasingly difficult. Yet, despite this intricate network of controls and feedback loops, there are always moments when the system seems to falter, when unexpected events, random glitches, or moments of profound insight break through the programmed routine. These anomalies are important because they hint at the possibility that the system isn't infallible, that there are cracks in the code that can be exploited. For example, some individuals report experiencing sudden flashes of awareness, moments when the familiar routine dissolves and they see the world with startling clarity. These moments can be triggered by anything, a chance encounter, a piece of art, or even a random thought that disrupts the cycle. In those moments, It feels as if the simulation's hold on reality loosens just enough to allow for genuine, unprogrammed experience. And while these instances might be fleeting, they serve as powerful reminders that the system is not unbreakable. Ultimately, the mechanics of control in our simulated reality are a complex tapestry woven from data, algorithms, routines, and human behavior. It's a system that operates on multiple levels, from the quantum mechanics that govern the smallest particles to the social and digital infrastructures that shape our everyday lives. Each level reinforces the others, creating an environment where free will appears to be an illusion, and every choice is influenced by forces beyond our conscious control. But here's the empowering part. Understanding how this simulation works is the first step toward breaking free from its constraints. When you start to see the patterns, the predictability of your daily routine, the subtle nudges of digital algorithms, the way social norms are reinforced, you also begin to notice the gaps, the glitches, and the opportunities for change. The system might be designed to be efficient and all-encompassing, but it's not perfect. Every time you challenge a routine, question a piece of information, or simply take a different path, you're sending a signal that the simulation isn't as rigid as it seems. So, while it might feel like you're just another cog in a well-oiled machine, remember that awareness is power. The more you learn about the mechanics behind the control, the algorithms, the feedback loops, the design of your environment, the more you can start to rewrite the code of your own life. It's about taking back the reins, even if just a little bit at a time, and refusing to let the system dictate every move you make. In the end, the simulation isn't just a cold, unfeeling program. It's a system that relies on your acceptance of its rules. And once you start questioning those rules, the whole game changes. The mechanics of control are there, yes, but so are the possibilities for disruption, for rewriting the narrative, and for reclaiming your autonomy. The simulation might be vast and complex, but it's not invincible. Every crack, every glitch, every moment of conscious rebellion chips away at the grand design, paving the way for a reality where you're not just following a script, you're writing your own. There's a lot to unpack when we talk about the mechanics of control, and while this discussion might seem like it's straight out of a sci-fi epic, it's rooted in the everyday experiences of billions of people. From the way our digital lives are structured to the very laws of physics that govern our universe, the idea that reality is a simulation offers a radical new way of understanding the world around us. And whether you take it as a literal truth or a metaphor for modern life, the message remains the same. By understanding how the simulation runs, you gain the power to change it. So as you go about your day, take a moment to notice the patterns. Question why you do what you do. Look for the moments when the script seems to break down, and know that those moments are your window of opportunity. The mechanics of control are complex and subtle, but they're not unchangeable. With awareness, curiosity, and a willingness to challenge the status quo, you can start to see the world not as a fixed, pre-programmed system, but as a dynamic, evolving reality. One where you have the power to write your own code. Imagine for a moment that you're going about your day, when suddenly you notice something that just doesn't add up. A moment so oddly timed, so unexpected, that you can't help but wonder if it's a glitch in the system. This section isn't about abstract theories or far-off possibilities. It's about real-life experiences, bizarre coincidences, and documented anomalies that hint at the possibility that our world isn't as random as it seems. In the next 3,000 words, we're going to dive deep into stories, experiments, and everyday events that might just be cracks in the grand simulation. Let's start with the story of Patricia. Patricia was an ordinary office worker who never thought twice about her daily routines. Every morning she'd grab a coffee at her favorite cafe, catch the train, and settle into the rhythm of her day. But soon she began to notice a series of odd coincidences. The cafe, she realized, always had exactly 3 people in line, even on busy mornings when you'd expect a crowd. Her train was consistently 2 minutes late, down to the exact second, and the same conversation topics cropped up repeatedly with her colleagues every Monday. At first, these details were nothing more than quirky patterns, but as they accumulated, Patricia couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She started keeping a log, jotting down the times, places, and details of these recurring phenomena. After weeks of observation, the numbers and coincidences began to form a pattern that defied mere chance. It was as if her life was following a predetermined script, a script where every moment had been carefully orchestrated. Patricia's experience is not isolated. Across the globe, countless people have reported similar glitches, moments when events seem too perfectly timed, or when the same numbers, names, or events repeat with uncanny precision. These patterns raise a simple question. Are we witnessing the natural quirks of an incredibly ordered universe, or are these the telltale signs of a simulation at work? Take, for instance, the phenomenon of déjà vu. Most of us have experienced that strange sensation of reliving a moment, of feeling like we've already been in a place or experienced an event before. While many scientists attribute déjà vu to the brain's neural processing, some researchers argue that it might be a glimpse into the underlying code of our reality. Imagine if the simulation recycles certain sequences of events to save on processing power, much like a video game reusing textures or assets in a different context. In those fleeting moments of déjà vu, you might be catching a glimpse of the same sequence being replayed, an echo of a previous run of the simulation. People who experience intense déjà vu sometimes claim it's more than a trick of memory. It's as if the system's code is momentarily exposed. Another intriguing case comes from an unusual series of coincidences reported by a group of friends during a weekend camping trip. One night, while sitting around a campfire, they began to notice that certain numbers kept appearing. The time on everyone's watches synced up exactly when a shooting star streaked across the sky. The log they were sitting on had the same serial number as the first car they saw in the morning, and even the pattern of constellations overhead seemed to mimic a repeating code. At first, they laughed it off as pure coincidence, but as the occurrences multiplied, one of them decided to record everything. Over the course of that weekend, the friends compiled a list of numbers, times, and seemingly random details that, when analyzed, suggested that there was an underlying order, almost as if the events were being orchestrated by an unseen hand. Now, while these stories might sound like the stuff of urban legend or science fiction, they're backed by accounts from people who have seen the same kinds of glitches in different contexts. There are documented cases of traffic lights malfunctioning in a coordinated way, weather patterns that defy statistical probability, and even instances where people have experienced a sudden, unexplained change in the behavior of electronic devices. For example, some individuals have recorded instances where their smart home devices seem to act on their own, lights flickering in patterns that coincide with important moments of decision-making, or appliances turning off and on in a way that appears almost like a signal. These events are subtle, and while they can often be dismissed as technical glitches, the sheer number of similar reports suggests that they might be something more. Let's not forget about the scientific realm, where researchers have observed anomalies that challenge our understanding of how the universe works. Consider the famous double-slit experiment in quantum mechanics. In this experiment, particles such as electrons display different behaviors depending on whether they are being observed. When unobserved, they act like waves, seemingly passing through two slits at once. But the moment they are observed, they choose a specific path, behaving like particles. This isn't just an odd quirk of nature. It's a fundamental property of the quantum world. Some scientists have suggested that this behavior could be analogous to the way a computer program renders details only when required. Until the observer interacts with the system, the information remains in a state of probability, a kind of waiting room where the system's code is ready to be executed. It's a concept that bridges the gap between physics and the idea of a controlled simulation, implying that our reality might be far more malleable than we assume. There are also cases where statistical anomalies have been documented on a large scale. For example, some researchers have analyzed social and economic data and found that human behavior, even when it seems free and random, often follows very tight, predictable patterns. In one study, economists discovered that nearly 90% of daily human decisions could be predicted with a high degree of accuracy by analyzing past behavior. This suggests that, while we like to believe in free will, our actions might be more scripted than we care to admit. Is it possible that these predictable patterns are not merely the result of habit, but evidence of an underlying algorithm at work? And then there's the matter of modern digital glitches, those unexpected, sometimes hilarious errors we encounter in our technology. Think about the time when a smartphone suddenly froze mid-swipe, or when an online streaming service suddenly repeated the same scene in a movie. While these instances are typically chalked up to software bugs, they also serve as a metaphor for something deeper. In a simulated reality, glitches aren't necessarily errors. They're moments when the system's code doesn't execute perfectly, revealing its underlying structure. In the same way that a video game might momentarily display a graphical glitch that reminds you of its digital nature, the glitches in our reality could be hints that everything we experience is part of a larger, programmed construct. One of the most compelling aspects of these case studies is not just the individual glitches themselves, but how they sometimes connect in unexpected ways. Consider the reports from people who have started to notice recurring symbols or themes in different aspects of their lives. Some have noticed that certain numbers, like 1111, appear repeatedly at significant moments. Others have reported that specific phrases or images seem to crop up again and again, as if they're embedded in the background of everyday life. These aren't isolated events. They're patterns that, when taken together, paint a picture of a reality that might be carefully managed from behind the scenes. It's as if the simulation has a set of Easter eggs hidden throughout our existence. Little nuggets of data that, if you're paying attention, can reveal something about the underlying code. There's also an emotional component to these experiences. Many people who have encountered these glitches describe feeling a sudden rush of clarity or an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. It's as if, for a brief moment, the layers of the simulation peel away and you see the raw, unfiltered truth beneath. This can be both exhilarating and unsettling. On one hand, it's a powerful reminder that the reality you've always known might be just a facade, a comfortable illusion designed to keep you in line. On the other hand, it's a call to awaken, to start questioning the patterns that have been drilled into you from birth. The more these glitches accumulate, the more they challenge your assumptions about free will, randomness, and the very nature of existence. Some individuals have even taken it upon themselves to systematically document these experiences. There are online communities and forums where people share their glitch logs, detailed accounts of every odd coincidence, every inexplicable event, every moment that seems to defy the rules of ordinary life. In these communities, members compare notes, analyze the data, and even run amateur experiments to test their theories. One popular experiment involves recording the time and context of every instance of a repeated number or phrase, then looking for correlations with external events like news stories, weather changes, or even personal milestones. The results are far from conclusive, but they do suggest that there's more to these glitches than mere chance. Consider the story of a college student who began noticing a strange pattern during her daily commute. Every morning, as she rode the bus, she would glance at her phone and notice that the time was always within a 5-minute window of 7:15 a.m. At first, she thought it was a coincidence, but as days turned into weeks, the pattern became undeniable. Curious, she decided to log the times and also take note of any unusual events that occurred during her ride. What she found was startling. On days when the bus arrived at exactly 7:15, there was a higher likelihood of experiencing a significant event later in the day, an unexpected meeting, an unplanned detour, even a brief flash of insight. While there's no scientific explanation for her findings, she began to wonder if the timing was a subtle signal, a way for the simulation to reset or calibrate the day. Another case involves a group of co-workers who noticed that every Friday, their office's coffee machine would malfunction in almost the exact same way. It wasn't a matter of the machine simply breaking down at random. It would always display a cryptic error message, pause for exactly 47 seconds, and then resume normal function. Intrigued, they started recording the incident, comparing notes, and even reaching out to other offices in their company to see if similar glitches occurred elsewhere. The pattern held up across multiple locations. Was it a coincidence, a quirk of the equipment, or was it a deliberate pause built into the system, an orchestrated glitch that served some unknown function in the grand design? These stories might sound like they're ripped straight from a movie script, yet they're part of a growing body of anecdotal evidence that challenges the idea of an entirely random, unstructured reality. The more people share their experiences, the more it seems that these glitches aren't isolated flukes, but recurring features of our everyday lives. They force us to ask, if our world is a meticulously designed simulation, why do these glitches keep occurring? And could they be the key to understanding, and perhaps even breaking, the code that governs our existence? One theory is that these glitches are not accidents at all, but intentional Easter eggs left by the architects of the simulation. Just as a video game developer might hide secret messages or unlockable content for players who look beyond the surface, the controllers of our reality might have embedded subtle anomalies meant to remind us that there's more to life than what meets the eye. These glitches could serve as a check on the system, a way to ensure that the code isn't so perfect that it becomes inflexible. They might be designed to nudge us toward greater awareness, to encourage us to question the apparent order of things, and to explore the possibility that we have the power to change the game. Of course, not all glitches are positive or enlightening. Some experiences can be downright unsettling, leaving people feeling disoriented or even frightened. Imagine walking down a familiar street and suddenly feeling as though you've stepped into a parallel version of your neighborhood, where every building is slightly out of place and every passerby seems to be following a different script. For some, these moments of dislocation are a source of anxiety, a reminder that the reality they've always known might be built on a foundation that's less stable than it appears. But for others, these experiences are a call to arms, a sign that it's time to wake up and start questioning the status quo. In the end, the case studies and real-life glitches we've explored here serve as more than just curiosities. They're pieces of a larger puzzle, a puzzle that challenges us to rethink everything we believe about free will, determinism, and the nature of our existence. Whether you interpret these glitches as literal evidence of a simulated reality or as powerful metaphors for the systems of control that govern our lives, the message is clear. There are cracks in the facade, and those cracks are where the truth begins to shine through. So the next time you experience a moment that feels too perfectly timed, or notice a pattern that you can't explain, pause for a moment. Consider the possibility that you might be witnessing a glitch in the simulation, a small, fleeting reminder that there's more to this world than the smooth, predictable surface we see every day. And if enough of us start paying attention, sharing our experiences and questioning the patterns, maybe, just maybe, we can begin to rewrite the script of our own lives. These stories and anomalies aren't about fueling paranoia or encouraging reckless rebellion. They're about opening your eyes to the possibility that the world might be far more dynamic and malleable than you've ever imagined. They challenge you to look beyond the everyday routine and see the underlying patterns that shape your reality. And in doing so, they offer a powerful reminder that you have the power to change those patterns, to break free from the predetermined script and start writing your own code. In sharing these case studies, we're not claiming to have all the answers. Instead, we're inviting you to join a growing community of curious minds who aren't content with taking reality at face value. Whether you're tracking coincidences, questioning long-held beliefs, or simply noticing the little glitches in your day-to-day life, you're participating in a movement that seeks to uncover the truth about our existence. Ultimately, these real-life glitches and case studies are a call to action. They challenge you to remain vigilant, to never stop asking questions, and to keep your mind open to the possibility that reality is not as fixed as it appears. They remind you that every anomaly is an invitation, a chance to see the world from a new perspective, and to discover that the power to shape your own destiny lies within you. So take a moment to reflect on your own experiences. What patterns have you noticed that might hint at something deeper? Have you ever experienced a moment of déjà vu that felt like more than just a quirk of memory? Maybe it's time to start your own log of these occurrences, to share your insights with others, and to join the conversation about the true nature of our reality. Because in the end, the glitches in our everyday lives might just be the first clues to a reality that's waiting to be reprogrammed, a reality where you're not just a passive observer, but an active participant in rewriting the code. And that, as unsettling as it may be, is a truth worth exploring. Now let's shine a light on the people and entities that might actually be running the show. When we say controllers, it's not just about the government or a few billionaire elites. We're talking about a vast network of digital puppet masters, people and organizations that operate in the shadows, whose influence is felt but rarely seen. For starters, let's consider the tech giants. Companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon aren't just making products. They're shaping how we think, what we buy, and even how we interact with the world. These corporations have access to more data than any government ever could, and they're using that data to predict and influence our behavior. Some experts argue that with their advanced algorithms and AI systems, these companies are essentially the programmers of our reality. They decide what you see in your news feed, what products get recommended, and even which information is amplified or buried. Then, there's the hidden elite, those secretive groups and shadow organizations that have been rumored to control world events for centuries. From whispers of ancient societies to modern-day secret meetings, there's a long history of powerful individuals working behind the scenes to steer society in a certain direction. While it might sound like a plot straight out of a movie, there are plenty of unverified accounts and leaked documents that suggest these groups exist and that they're working in concert with today's tech giants to maintain control over the simulation. And let's not forget the role of artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. AI isn't just about self-driving cars or voice assistants. It's about creating systems that can learn, adapt, and even make decisions on their own. As AI continues to evolve, it could become the ultimate tool for controlling the simulation, running processes that are too complex for human minds to grasp. Imagine a future where AI not only predicts your every move, but actually shapes the world around you, adjusting the code of reality on the fly. It might sound like science fiction, but with the rapid pace of technological advancement, it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility. So, if everything is set up to control us, why do so many people go about their lives like nothing's wrong? The answer lies deep in our own minds. Our brains are wired to follow routines, to seek comfort in the familiar, and to avoid the unknown. It's human nature to stick with what's safe, even if it means living a life that's been programmed for us. Think about it. Every day, we follow a set routine. We wake up, check our phones, go to work, and then come home to relax in front of the TV. It's not just habit. Our brains have been conditioned to operate this way. Studies in neuroscience and psychology show that once we establish a routine, our minds are less likely to question it. We become so comfortable with the familiar patterns that we rarely notice when something is off. That's exactly what the controllers want. By keeping us in a predictable loop, they make it easier to manage us, to guide our thoughts and decisions without us even realizing it. There's also the role of fear. Change is scary. Even when we're presented with evidence that our reality might be manipulated, the idea of breaking free from that control can be overwhelming. It's easier to stick with the known, even if it means living in a simulation, than to venture into uncharted territory where true freedom might lie. This fear of the unknown is one of the key reasons why so many people remain asleep to the reality of their situation. They'd rather live in a comfortable illusion than face the possibility that everything they believe might be a lie. Social conditioning plays a huge role too. From the moment we're born, we're bombarded with messages about what's normal and what it means to succeed. Schools, media, and even our families reinforce the idea that following the crowd is the safest and most rewarding path in life. The result? Most of us spend our lives chasing after a version of success that's been programmed into us by society. It's only when we start questioning these messages and examining our routines that we begin to see the cracks in the system. All right, now that we've talked about how deep the rabbit hole goes and who might be behind the curtain, let's get into what you can do about it. The good news is that once you start to notice the patterns, the glitches, the predictable routines, you can begin to break free. This isn't about completely rejecting the world you know. It's about becoming more aware and taking control of your own life. The first step is to become aware of your own routines. Start paying attention to your day-to-day habits. When you notice yourself doing the same thing over and over, ask yourself why. Is it really your choice? Or is it just part of the script that's been written for you? Simple practices like mindfulness and journaling can help you see these patterns more clearly. Try keeping a reality journal where you note down any odd coincidences or moments that seem too perfectly timed. Over time, you might start to see a bigger picture emerging, a pattern that hints at the underlying code of your life. Another tool is to limit your exposure to the digital influences that shape your behavior. This might mean taking regular breaks from social media, questioning the information you consume, or even experimenting with a digital detox. Research has shown that reducing screen time can help reset your brain's natural rhythms and make you more aware of your own thoughts and feelings. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but trust me, once you start disconnecting from the constant noise, you'll begin to notice the subtle cues that are often hidden behind the barrage of digital distractions. Building a community of like-minded individuals can also make a huge difference. When you share your experiences and insights with others, you start to see that you're not alone. There are countless online groups and forums where people discuss everything from quantum physics to the latest AI breakthroughs, all in the context of questioning our reality. These communities not only provide support, but also offer a wealth of knowledge and new perspectives that can help you further understand and eventually break free from the program patterns. It's also important to arm yourself with knowledge. Dive into books, documentaries, and articles that explore the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern science. Whether it's reading about Gnostic teachings, watching interviews with whistleblowers, or exploring the latest theories on quantum mechanics, every bit of information adds another layer to your understanding of the simulation. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to see through the illusions that have been set up around you. One final point on breaking the chains: action. Awareness is great, but it needs to be coupled with concrete steps. Experiment with your daily routines. Do something unexpected. Take a different route to work. Try a new hobby. Or even just rearrange your living space. Small acts of rebellion can add up to a big shift in perspective. When you start doing things that aren't part of the programmed script, you're effectively hacking the simulation, creating cracks in the facade that keeps you locked in. Let's take a step back and look at the big picture. We've talked about how our reality might be a carefully crafted simulation, the forces and entities that could be controlling it, and even how our own minds play a part in keeping the system running. So, what does all this mean for you right now in your everyday life? First off, it means that you have more power than you might think. The fact that you're questioning the world around you is the first step toward taking back control. Every time you notice a pattern, every time you decide to do something differently, you're chipping away at the control that's been imposed on you. It's not about becoming a rebel without a cause. It's about reclaiming your autonomy and deciding for yourself what's real and what isn't. Secondly, understanding that your reality might be manipulated can be both liberating and terrifying. On one hand, it suggests that nothing is fixed, that the world is far more malleable than we've been led to believe. On the other hand, it also means that there's a hidden agenda at play, one that's designed to keep you comfortable and docile. The choice, ultimately, is yours. Continue living on autopilot or wake up and start questioning everything. The more aware you become, the more you'll see that the system isn't as invincible as it appears. There are cracks, and with each crack, there's an opportunity to make a change. Now you might be thinking, this all sounds too wild to be true. And you're right, it does sound out there, but sometimes the wildest ideas are the ones that get people thinking, that shake them out of their complacency. Whether the simulation theory is 100% factual or just a metaphor for the way modern society works, the important takeaway is that we have the power to choose how we live our lives. We're not just cogs in a machine. We're conscious beings capable of thought, creativity, and, most importantly, change. So what now? You've heard the ideas, you've seen the evidence, both scientific and anecdotal, and you're probably buzzing with questions. The next step is simple. Start taking action. Look at your life. Notice the patterns. Question the routines that have been drilled into you from day one. And most importantly, connect with others who are on the same journey. Share your experiences, your doubts, and your breakthroughs. The more people who start asking these questions, the more cracks will appear in the system. This isn't about overthrowing a government or fighting a secret society with batons and black flags. It's about reclaiming your personal power, one small act of awareness at a time. Every time you break out of your routine, every time you challenge a belief that's been handed down to you, you're sending a message to the forces controlling the simulation. I'm awake, and I'm in control. So take the first step. Unplug for a bit, reflect on your day, write down those little moments of déjà vu and uncanny coincidences. Start a conversation with someone about what you're noticing, and if you feel like diving deeper, there are communities out there, books to read, and experiments to try. Remember, the choice is always yours. You can keep living the life that's been programmed for you, or you can choose to write your own code and create a reality that truly reflects who you are. Before I sign off, I want you to remember one thing. Awareness is the key. Once you start questioning, you start seeing the world for what it really is, a place full of possibilities, not limitations. And with that, every step you take toward questioning the norm is a step toward a more authentic, empowered life. Take this message to heart, share it with others who might need a wake-up call, and remember, the simulation might be vast, but your ability to change it is even greater. It's time to break the chains, challenge the status quo, and become the master of your own reality. The choice is yours. Stay asleep or wake up and take control. Now, I know this is a lot to take in, but each section here is designed to build on the previous one, guiding you from the shock of the revelation all the way to practical steps for reclaiming your freedom. We've blended ancient ideas, modern science, and everyday observations to create a script that not only informs, but inspires you to think for yourself and act on that awareness. From the opening where we shatter the illusion, to diving deep into who might really be controlling our so-called reality, to understanding how we've been conditioned to follow a predictable script, this video is your guide to a whole new way of seeing the world. You're not just a passive observer, you have the power to change the code. So whether you're watching this as a curious mind or a rebel ready to challenge the norm, I invite you to join this journey. The simulation is vast and complex, but together, by sharing our stories and questioning the everyday, we can make a difference. Let's break free from the programmed responses, rewire our thinking, and start living a life where we truly call the shots. Remember, everything you do, from the simplest habit to the boldest move, is a chance to rewrite your own part of the simulation. This is your invitation to join a community of people who are not satisfied with the status quo and who are ready to see through the illusions. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep taking action. Because the simulation might be running in the background, but you hold the power to change its course. And now, as you step away from this video, take a moment to look around your life. What patterns do you see? What routines could use a little disruption? It all starts with one question, one small act of rebellion, one decision to say, I'm not just going along with the flow, I'm here to create my own reality. That's the message we need to spread. Awareness is the first step to true freedom. So, if you're ready to start challenging the code, to question the invisible forces behind your daily routine, and to finally break free from the confines of a programmed life, hit that subscribe button, share this message, and let's build a movement of awakened minds. Because when enough people start noticing the cracks, the entire system starts to tremble. Thank you for watching, for questioning, and for being brave enough to consider that maybe, just maybe, the reality you've known isn't the only one possible. The journey to awakening is just beginning, and I'm excited to see where it takes us. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and most of all, stay true to yourself. The power is in your hands. Now go out there and make a change.